Welcome back. We're visiting today again with Rob Roy, who's the Chief Investment Officer and co-leader of environmental and sustainability for Advent Health. And we've been talking about all the wonderful things they're doing and the mission of Advent Health. I've had a chance to review the 2023 Advent Health Climate Resilience Plan, and that includes a letter from Terry Shaw, who is President and CEO of Advent Health, about being a signatory of the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services Sector Climate Pledge. And a significant part of this commitment is reducing carbon emissions by 50% by 2040 and reducing and reaching net zero emissions by 2050. What are some of the major steps that you've taken so far to place Advent Health on the path to achieve these goals?
Yeah, thank you. So just to clarify on the pledge, the 50% reduction is for scope 1 and 2, and the target date is 2030. So it's 10 years earlier than you had stated.
Oh, thank you. I missed that.
Yeah, no worries. So the first step in our process was understanding the issues and then measuring. Once we measured using our 2021 data, we could see that across scope 1, 2, and 3, our total emissions was about 8 billion pounds of toxins that we were responsible for emitting into the atmosphere. It's pretty hard to say that number and then go back and talk about your mission or your tagline and feel whole. Those two things don't really fit together all that well. So the next step was to say, well, what are we going to do about that? It was around that time that we were encouraged to sign the HHS Health Sector Climate Pledge, which has those key milestones that you just mentioned in there. But it's really not in our culture to sign a fancy pledge without knowing that we're going to get it done. And so Terry said to Maurice and I, what you're asking me to do sounds good. It sounds like that is a positive step for our company and for the planet and our communities. But I'm not willing to sign up for that unless you can convince me that you know what it would take to get it done, what are the levers that you can pull, how long would it take you to get there, and what might it cost us to get this done? So that's what we did. We went away and we said, okay, well, what are the levers that you can pull? And there were several levers in the process that were going to drive us towards being able to accomplish that. The first one is that in the background, renewables are one of the most cost-effective ways to produce electricity. And so in each of the different grids and with all the different utilities that we pay across the country, they're all in the process of greening their mix of fuels that are going in to produce electricity. So we have this tailwind behind us. We don't control it, but we need to constantly measure how are we being moved along this journey through the work of others. That's your tailwind. The next thing that you could really focus on is with your utilities, what opportunities do you have to engage in projects that they may do? Community solar projects, energy efficiency projects. How do you build partnerships with the utilities that you currently buy electricity from? And where do you have the opportunity to reduce your emissions or go green from that perspective? Again, a limited set, but important partnerships, not only to help us move along the path, but to create demand and help our partners move all of their communities along that path as well. The third item that we had is energy efficiency. Over time, any large operating business needs to refresh and replenish their capital infrastructure stock. And so we've gone through a process of about 18 months of doing a full assessment of all the major pieces of equipment that we have across all of our hospitals and knowing what their emissions profile is and when they would be ready for replacement. That's going to give us the capacity to know where are the hotspots and what can we do to be reducing emissions within our own facilities, either replacing equipment, lowering the energy use intensity, or adding automation to help us improve the footprint that we have there. So that work is ongoing and will happen over the next decade. Then we also have the capacity to do on-site renewable energy generation. And even despite the fact that those are smaller changes to your overall footprint, they have very large consequences to engagement with your employees and engagement with your communities, because there are things that people can see they can see the changes. So for example, right now, we're most of the way through installing a 3 megawatt solar array at our corporate campus. This is one of the largest corporate solar arrays in the state of Florida. When it comes online, it will supply about 30% of the power that we need for this campus. And we're also accessing the IRA funding for that. So about 30% of the total cost of that project is coming back to us in federal incentive through the IRA. This is actually a very nice looking solar installation that's creating over 400 new covered parking spaces for our employees. And we're putting 65 electric vehicle chargers sprinkled throughout the campus to give capacity for our employees and our guests to charge EVs. We know that we don't have 65 EVs necessarily that show up here every day, but we also can see the growth in the fleet of EVs across the country. And even within our own employees, there's probably some that might like to get one, but don't know if they'd be able to charge at home or where they would go. This gives them that capacity to take that next step. And moving from a combustion engine to an electric vehicle is one of the biggest things that an individual can do in adjusting their footprint. Finally, the ones that really move the needle are the off-site utility scale renewable energy projects that we saw. And so there we put together an internal team, cross-functional with, risk management, legal, accounting, finance, all of our different groups to lean in and understand how do these kinds of arrangements work. We then used our partnership with Deloitte to go to market in a competitive process and sought to purchase renewable energy or be the off-taker of renewable energy credits from large-scale utility-sized facilities. In the end, we started off, we were going to do one deal, and then maybe a year or 2 years later, we would do another deal on our journey to try to get to 50% reduction. But in this first process, we found 2 deals that were very compelling for us to engage with. One was an existing wind farm that we sourced through one of our investment managers, Brookfield, who's one of our core investment partners. It is a wind farm in West Texas, and we're the 50% off-taker of the energy produced by 64 wind turbines on 14,000 acres. So in January this year, we're about 42% renewable electricity across all of Advent Health's footprint.
That's wonderful.
The second deal that we did is a partnership development deal that we did with NextEra, where we're currently developing 3,000 acres of solar. That project is actually running a little bit ahead of schedule. It will be online before the end of 2025. And when that comes online, Advent Health will have achieved 100% renewable electricity for all of our operations. That's over 1.1 terawatt hours of power. Those 2 deals together have a combined positive net present value to Advent Health of over $100 million. So if you go back to scope 1 and scope 2, the pledge says you'll reduce scope 1 and 2 by 50% by 2030, but purchased electricity is about 2/3. So in the 2 deals that we've done, we will have achieved the pledge by the end of 25, so 5 years early, and done it with better than a positive 9-figure financial outcome for the organization. This is a milestone for us, but it's one of the early steps that we've used to create momentum around this work and really encourage us to continue on the path towards sustainability.
That's exceedingly impressive. I know we do a lot of work with NextEra as well as with FPL and others. You mentioned that you are working with them. Are you a partner with them, or are they building the plant and you're taking the energy? How did that work?
Yeah, so we are the off-taker for the power. So we'll be the sole off-taker for the renewable energy credit. So if you think about it from the developer's perspective, in deregulated markets or in any market, it's not too hard to figure out the quantity of electricity that you'll be able to produce. But because electricity prices move throughout the day and throughout the week and year, it's impossible to know the level of or the price that you'll get for that electricity. And so I see a very efficient lights bill on your timers. We have them too, but my timer I think is a little bit longer. Maybe I'm gesticulating more.
I need to adjust mine.
We'll adjust yours a little bit. So it's relatively easy for a producer to know the quantity of electricity they'll produce, but not to know the price that they'll get for it. And so in these arrangements, an organization like Advent Health says, look, we'll agree to a fixed price for you such that it'll guarantee the profitability for the developer. Sometimes the price is below that, in which case we're paying them. And sometimes the price is above that level that they need, in which case they're paying us. At the end of the day, there's cash flows that go both ways. And so another way to think about it is they are renting our balance sheet to take some of that risk out of their development. And in exchange for renting our balance sheet, we're getting the credit for the renewable electricity that's being put into the grid. Those globally recognized immutable RECs that we get as that deal are proof that we put clean electricity into the system so that no matter where we're taking it out across the country, we know that we put clean energy in. And so we have the claim at clean energy coming out backside.
I've never heard the phrase renting the balance sheet, but that's outstanding. I understand it totally now. This has been fascinating. Thank you so very much. We'll continue this conversation next month with much, much more. And we hope you'll come back and join us as listeners to find out more about what Rob and his team and everyone at Advent Health is doing.